Hello friends, my name is Lauren Taylor from Lauren Taylor Made, and I'm grateful to be here on the Scrapbook.com channel again to create a fun, out of this world, space themed birthday card. I have a lot of products on my desk here, Scrapbook.com exclusives mostly, and I'm going to walk you through just a quick look here of everything that I'm using, but I will explain it throughout the video, and of course you can find my product list down below in the description of this video. But I'm going to be using a mix of different things and a mix of different techniques that I hope that at least something in this video today inspires you to create yourself, whether it be playing with rub-ons, some die cutting, or maybe making your own galaxy background. I'm really excited to show you a few different techniques today. So I have quite a few dies, a few stamp sets, I've got lots of paper pads, and I'm going to be using mixed media for some ink blending today. I have again dies and embossing folders, stencils, and rub-ons, lots of fun things. I know this is Halloween, but have you seen the star stencil in this baddie layered stencil set? It's perfect for space themed cards, so we're going to be using that even though it's not Halloween. And then also again, a few rub-ons. I love adding little small rub-ons as details or like kind of like confetti on my cards. So let's jump into our ink blending. I have my white large workspace mat on my desk, and I'm using the 6.5 by 8.5 Grip Mate, which is a photopolymer sticky mat. And I have a piece of white smooth mixed media cardstock in the 6 by 8 size, and I'm going to be using some Stellar inks to do my ink blending. I've got my medium brushes, and I'm just going to start with my lightest color, which is Shooting Star, again from Ranger and Simon Hurley Create. And then I'll move on to High Tide, which is a little bit of a kind of light tealishy blue color. And from there, I'll move into Clear Skies, which is more of a blue. And then finally, I'll bring in Tropical Tango. And what I'm doing is I'm just creating a random swoosh of color across the card. There really is no, or the cardstock, there really is no rhyme or reason to what I'm doing. I'm just adding color because I'm going to cover a lot of this up with black ink, but I wanted to create what I thought would look like a galaxy of stars. So I have my color down, but I want to add a little bit of splatter to add some texture. So I brought in my Distress sprayer. Unfortunately, it's a little clogged, so I'm getting some weird straight lines. I'm going to go clean it after this video. But you know what? I think it still looks really cool in the end, having these types of lines of what will look like a lighter color at the end, because these are water reactive inks. Next, I'll grab my Stellar foam die in Black Widow, and for this one I'm using my blending brush for my Simon Hurley inks. But as I was going through and adding ink all the way around the edges of the color, I just felt like it wasn't quite as dark as what I wanted. So I'm going to grab in my Black Soot Tim Holtz Distress ink pad, which is a much deeper pigmented black ink for the purposes of this card. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that all the way around as well. I'm overlapping on some of the color, but I'm not blending it in completely. I want it to look like a bright light of color and what will be stars in this background. So once I'm happy with how much black ink I have, I'll go ahead and put my inks away, and I'm doing a little bit of touch up with the blue just to try to bring in a little bit more of that blue color. But that will finish off the inky background. So I'll go ahead and peel this off my Grip Mate, and then I'm going to set my Grip Mate aside. I am going to clean up, make sure I get that ink off and get any ink off of my workspace mat as well. So next I'm going to do a little bit of die cutting on this background. You could definitely just trim this down to an A2 card or whatever size card you want to make, but I like adding interest by using some of the A2 plates from Scrapbook.com. This one is called the Thick and Thin Strips Decorative A2 plate, and I'm just kind of picking where I think I like the color the most. So I liked that spot on the cardstock, so I went ahead and die cut that out. For the other half of my background, I'm just going to grab a sheet of black A2 mixed media cardstock, so just pulling that out of my paper pad, and we're going to do a little bit of stenciling. So I'm grabbing that baddie layered stencil set, but just the pretty stars. I'm going to put my Grip Mate back onto my workspace mat, and then add my paper, and then add my stencil. I'm going to try to find a spot where I like the stars in the design, because you're only going to see about the top half of this background. I'm going to use some Simon Hurley paste. This is slippery when wet lunar paste, and I'm using my paste tool to get the paste out of the little jar, and then I have my all-purpose craft scraper to help spread that paste across the stencil. Again, I'm not really trying to get it in every single star because you're not going to see it at the bottom, and anything that won't be on the cardstock itself doesn't need it, so I went ahead and just put the excess of the paste back into the jar. I have my stencil and tool bath, which is like a collapsible cleaning tub, and I already had it filled with warm soapy water, which I just get ready to go whenever I do anything with stencils, especially stencil paste. And I drop my stencil and my tools into that bath, and I'm going to let it sit and just soak next to me until I'm done crafting, where I will go and clean it in my sink. So now that the paste is drying, I'm going to be very careful to not, bump any of my little stars that I've created, but I am a very impatient crafter, so I want to add some of my rub-ons. So I grabbed the disco balls in gold. They're a metallic rub-on transfer, and I cut a few of the stars out, and I'm going to do the same out of the cosmic rub-on transfers. I love this cosmic set. You can see I've used it before. There's such great colors and different shaped stars in that rub-on set, so a really good one to have. I used my scissors, the titanium 7-inch scissors, to cut those out, and I'm just going to use the little popsicle sticks that comes with your rub-ons to add these around the stars that I just stenciled in the background. So I'm finding a place where I want to add a star, and I'm rubbing it on with the popsicle stick and slowly peeling the backing just to make sure I don't accidentally miss a spot and then I've completely ripped it off the card and now I have to line it back up again and get it back on there. It's not the end of the world if that happens, and it does in a little bit here, but I do like to pull the backing very slowly and make sure that the image has stuck to the cardstock before completely removing it. So again, I'm going to repeat this for the rest of the stars, being very careful to not put my sleeve into any of my lunar paste stars. They did dry pretty quickly. It's starting to get warm here in Southern California, so I am not having to wait too long for my paste to dry, but I am still being very careful as I add these stars. So I'll keep going. I don't know exactly where the bottom of my background is going to end up yet. I know I want to use those thick strips on the bottom of my card. So I'm just going to go a little bit more than halfway down, knowing that anything on the lower half won't be seen, but it'll be okay. It'll still kind of peek out from the background. Once I'm done with the colorful stars, I'm going to move on to the gold ones. These stars actually look like they would blend in with the paste really well since they're a similar shade of gold. So I'm just using this as an opportunity to fill in some of the more blank areas where the paste did not show up or did not have an area to show up, since that's probably where the bat would go if I used that layered stencil as intended. But once I'm done with the rub-ons, that will finish off the top part of our background. So we're going to move on to building up the base. I'm going to grab the more colorful strips, the thicker strips from my die cutting, and the thinner ones are about 1/8 of an inch wide, and I'm going to cut some gold cardstock to fit in between. They're going to be the thin parts of the thick and thin stripes. I could die cut this whole thing out again out of some gold cardstock, but I didn't really want to waste my gold cardstock on that. I thought, let me just cut 1/8 of an inch-ish strips using my paper trimmer. This one is the Tim Holtz and Tonic Studio paper trimmer. And again, I am just trimming down those little strips of gold cardstock. This is from the holographic 6x8 paper pad to fit in between the thicker strips instead of die cutting out a large part of gold. My paste is dry. I'm just lightly tapping with my finger to make sure I don't smear anything or get my fingerprint on it. And I do want to trim this down 1/4 of an inch. I should have done this before I stenciled and everything, but everything is dry, so it's really quick and easy to just trim off 1/4 of an inch. So now it is 4 by 5.5 inches. I'm going to layer on the design of my galaxy background that I created. So I'm going to start with the lowest one, and I'm just going to use some liquid glue. This is the Artiste Craft Glue. I do have one of the smaller precision tips on it, and I'm going to add that liquid adhesive to the backing of the strip and add that to the very bottom of my panel. I'm going to off center it so that way it goes a little off the left and right. I'm trying to center it, I guess I should say, but I'm not worried about it being even. I just want it to be flush with the bottom of this black panel. Once that's in place, I'm going to use that glue to just add a little line of glue above the strip that I just glued down, and then I will add the gold strip. So this is just going to add in more shine, a little bit of interest to the background. You could just trim down your galaxy background right to the bottom of the card. You don't need to do anything fancy if you don't want to or don't have a die like this, but I find that using the A2 plate dies just adds a little bit of fun to the card and, you know, just to spice it up a little bit. So I've added my second strip, and then I'll repeat the process again for the gold. I did think I would try to fit all 4 of those thicker green and yellow galaxy strips, but after I place the third one, I'm going to think that that's probably enough. I don't want it to go too high and cover the stenciled background and all those stars that I added, so I'm just going to add this third one as the last one. You can see my pensive thoughts there when I was debating what I wanted to glue or how I wanted to finish this bottom half or the base of this panel. So I'll go ahead and add that last thicker stripe. I love the greens and the teal and the blue with the black and the pops of color from the stars on the top of the card. Once that glue has dried and my cardstock isn't sliding around anymore, I'm going to grab my paper trimmer again, and we're just going to trim off the excess that goes past the edge of the black cardstock. So I want this panel to still end up being 4 by 5.5 inches. So I'm just going to easily trim off those little excess pieces and toss them in my recycle bin next to me at my desk. So once I get one side trimmed down, I'll go ahead and trim the other. The reason that I trimmed this panel down to 4 inches was because I wanted to layer it with a pattern paper from the Cosmic pattern paper cardstock. There is an A2 collection, but I have the 6x8 out, so I'm going to use that to trim down a panel that is A2 in size, 4¼ by 5.5 inches. I went with this kind of swirly paper. I liked the red, orange, and pink. I think it blends in with those rub-ons that I added to the starry background. So I'm just going to go ahead and trim this down to be, again, an A2 panel. I could have dug through my stash to find my A2 paper pad, but I really like working with the 6x8, so just trim that down and it peeks out the edges, which I really like. If you don't want to do that, you could just also trim down some small strips and you can glue those under when you add them to a card base just to get that same effect without using a whole sheet of paper. Next, we're going to move into the details of our card. I've die cut the astronaut from the Astronaut and Rocket decorative die set. I cut the astronaut base out of some white cardstock, and I doubled it up because I really wanted him to be nice and sturdy on the card. So he's going to be a little bit thicker than everything else, but I just like doing that for my die cuts that I use for decorating if it feels a little too dainty for me. I'm going to follow the design right on the back of the packaging. I'm going to zoom in a bit so you can see a little bit better what I'm doing. But I've die cut the astronaut details out of the Cosmic 6x8 pattern cardstock as well as the Festive Duo smooth cardstock paper pad. I wanted to lean into the oranges of the card, so I have die cut some of the details out of the kind of blue and pink pattern from that Cosmic paper pad to give it a nice little blue-gray look to the astronaut's mask and some of the details on his suit, where the other details that I've die cut are out of orange. I did also use a little bit of the holographic cardstock from the metallic paper pad so I could get some fun details on the glass of his mask on the astronaut suit as well as the buttons on the front of the suit. I'm using my Artiste glue and precision tip to glue all of these down, and I'm using my handy dandy tweezers. These are the fine tip ergonomic reverse grip craft tweezers to help me get things in place, as well as my Craft Pick Pro tool. I use that Pro tool every single day. It feels like it's my go-to, probably can't live without it tool. I'm going to keep adding all the little details on. I'm adding the glue directly to the astronaut itself and then adding the details on. And for the little buttons, again, I'm going to add the little tiny metallic details using my craft tool. I've added glue already to the base, so just easily dropping everything in. I love using the back of the packaging to make sure I am assembling things how they are intended. You can always mix and match things, of course. You definitely don't have to follow it exactly, but when I'm trying to find the right placement for some of the die cuts, I love that Scrapbook.com includes what it's supposed to look like. My astronaut's going to sit on the front of the card on one of those strips, so I'm going to go ahead and just set that aside for now while I work on my planets. So this is the Cosmic Decorative Die Set, and I've die cut them out of different cardstock packs. Again, the Festive Duo and the Cosmic 6x8 paper pads. I had a lot of fun kind of picking what I wanted to do for the different planets, which I'm going to turn into balloons on this card. For my little green moon, I wanted to stamp the happy birthday sentiment from the mini circle sentiments. However, I was really worried about it staying in place to stamp my sentiment. So I threw in my grip mate inside of my Misty. I have the Rose Quartz Misty stamping tool to help keep that paper in place while I stamped. And I used Nocturne VersaFine Clear ink to stamp that sentiment in black on the moon. For my next planet, I'm going to layer a couple pieces together, but for the circle die cut, I went ahead and used my Mighty Mister to just spritz that cardstock down, and I'm using the Streamers 3D embossing folder with my Platinum 6 die cutting machine. Did you know that Scrapbook.com has an adorable pearlescent pink one? Because it's amazing. And I'm going to go ahead and just run that through real quick using the correct sandwich for a 3D embossing folder. And it just gives it some fun texture to the solid cardstock. And I'm going to then layer my little swirly piece that I die cut from the Cosmic paper pad to the front of this planet. I twisted and turned it until I liked the placement, and then I'm just going to go ahead and use liquid glue to glue those two layers together. I'm going to repeat that process of gluing to create my Earth-inspired planet balloon by gluing the green piece onto the blue circle. That will finish putting our planets together, but like I said, I want to turn them into balloons. So let's play with the layout and see where we're going to place all of our planets, and also see what we can do to turn them into balloons using our Nested Round Balloons decorative die set. So I'm going to start with what I call a dry run of placing all of my dies onto my card before I glue anything down. I have a few crafty friends that also call this auditioning. They're auditioning their die cuts and their sentiments to figure out where they want everything to be placed. And I'm going to grab, again, that nested balloon die set, and I'm going to use two of the little ribbony strings, and I die cut them out of the gold metallic cardstock. And I'm going to use these to layer between the balloons and my astronaut so it looks like the astronaut is holding them, even though I guess in space, can you really have balloons? But we're not going to think too hard about that. So I am layering them together, figuring out what I want each of the strings to be, where I'm going to need to trim them, how they're going to layer together. And once I have a good idea, we can start gluing things down. So I'm going to add a few more rub-ons. I noticed that I didn't add any stars to my galaxy background, so did the same exact thing that I did earlier. I grabbed some of my rub-ons and used the popsicle stick to add some stars where I knew that there wouldn't be anything overlapping, so you could definitely see them on the card. I'm grabbing my deluxe adhesive roller and I'm going to glue my background to my top folding A2 card base. And then I'm going to repeat that for my starry galaxy background. Again, just adding some tape runner, and I'm going to glue that to the center of the card front. I'm using my grid on my workspace mat to help me get that centered, and I have my card base ready to go. So this planet is going to be in the back, so it's going to go on first. I did also add a few rub-ons onto this planet, but they're going to be kind of hard to see when I'm done, so you could definitely skip that set if you're recreating this card. I'm adding some 1mm foam adhesive. This is the 1-inch roll of black. It's a very low profile, thin adhesive, and it is my favorite adhesive in the world. I love Scrapbook.com's 1mm foam adhesive. It gives you dimension without it being too crazy thick, which means you can also layer and layer if you want it to have lots of different popping up elements on your card. So I went ahead and added that foam adhesive behind my large balloon, and I added just a little bit of liquid adhesive to my string to make sure it would stick to the balloon. It ended up sticking right onto the foam, so I really didn't need it, but I wanted to make sure it would stick exactly where I wanted it to go before pressing that planet into the background. And I'm repeating that for my happy birthday moon. And then I did trim down just a bit of my string for the Earth because it was going to go past the other side of the planet. So just trim that so it would fit. Finally, I'm having all of the balloons strings bunch up in one area, so I added that foam adhesive to my astronaut so they all kind of accumulate behind the astronaut's hand, and then I have the last one in my astronaut's hand. I felt like it gave it a look of them all being bunched together, and the astronaut is holding on to those strings. I've pretty much finished the card, but I wanted to add a final sentiment. I really wanted it to be on the front of the card, but we're going to play around and realize that it looks better on the inside. So I'm stamping the sentiment, "It's your day." And this is from the Hooray stamp set, and there is a coordinating die. So I went ahead and stamped it with the same black ink, and I'm using the coordinating die to cut it out so I could place it on the front of the card. But no matter where I looked, I felt like it just took away from the card. So we're just going to put it right onto the inside. I'm going to also grab some of those thinner strips. I don't want anything to go to waste if I can help it, and I thought it'd be fun to glue those on the inside of the card as well. So I'm grabbing my Artiste glue and adding a very thin line of glue to each of these strips, and I'm going to add them on top of each other at the bottom of this card, just kind of creating a fun bluey, greeny, yellowy scene, adding those strips, tying it to the front of the card as well. I just really think that it steps up the inside of the card. I'm using my Pear Blossom Press T-square ruler for A2 cards to get my sentiment centered, and that really finishes it off. I think this turned out really adorable. I know there was a lot of techniques and products today, but again, I hope something on this card inspired you to try and create yourself. Let me know in the comments which technique you liked and that you're most excited to try. I can't wait to come back and read what everyone thinks of this card. Thank you to Scrapbook.com for having me today. Scrapbook.com truly is the best. With their amazing best selection, free inspiration, they're fast to ship, and empowering all of us to create beautiful, meaningful handmade creations. If I'm new to you, I sure hope you'll give me a follow. Scrapbook.com will have me linked down below. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day. Bye!
Thanks for watching.
For the best experience, watch and shop our videos at scrapbook.com/livestream.
Everything's in one place, the videos, products, and fun.
Sign up for our VIP text to get an alert so you can join us so you'll never miss a live.
Scrapbook.com/livestream, the best way to watch.